Hey everybody, it's Christina from Creations with Christina. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be continuing on with our card making for beginners videos, and we're just going to be talking about creating our card bases, what you really need to create those card bases and how to do them and different styles that you can get out of an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock. I have my paper trimmer, my scoring board, along with my bone folder. I like to use this Teflon bone folder, but most bone folders come with their own scoring board. And then I have my 8.5 by 11 cardstock. We're gonna start off with the real basic card. That is the one pretty much a lot of us use, which is the 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base. I'm gonna go ahead and take my paper trimmer. We're gonna take our cardstock on the 11 inch side, put it inside of our paper trimmer and line it up at the 5.5 inch mark on our trimmer. We're just gonna go ahead and cut that, and we just cut our card stock in half. So now we have 2 pieces of cardstock that we can use to create 2 cards. I'm going to take my Score Buddy and take one of my newly cut pieces of cardstock and set that into my trimmer, again on the long edge. And most trimmers will have a little mark so that it shows you where your score line is. This one has one, and I believe my larger version of this has a couple of additional marks on it. But this right here has a little asterisk, so you can see right where you need to score. So I just took my cardstock, bumped it right up against the edge, so it's right up against the edge of my base, and used my bone folder to create my score line. I can then go ahead and take my cardstock, fold it in half right on my score line, and I have a really nice crisp score where my card is folded. So we can create our card base going in the portrait mode, like this, or landscape style, which is the longer and it opens at the top, or we can do it in the portrait style, which is taller and opens at the side. I'm going to show you another version of that. This one is the portrait style card, which opens from the top. It's a longer style card. So we're going to take another piece of cardstock, and this time we're going to go on the 8.5 inch side. So we're going to take the smaller edge of our cardstock and we're going to cut this at 4 1/4. So I'm going to line this up at 4 1/4. Go ahead and create my cut. I'm going to set my extra piece aside because we do get 2 cards out of this one piece of cardstock. And this time I'm going to take my card base, put it into my paper trimmer, or into my Score Buddy, and I'm going to score it at the 5.5 inch mark. And then we can go ahead and fold our card base in half right on our score line and create that nice crisp edge with our bone folder. So now we have a portrait style card that measures 4 1/4 inches wide, 5.5 inches tall, and opens from the top. You can also turn this to the side and make it a 4 1/4 by 5.5, and it opens from the side. Another style card that's really fun to make is square cards. I'm going to take my cardstock on the 11 inch side, and this time I'm going to go ahead and cut it at 4 1/4. I'm going to cut it at 4 1/4. I'm going to set aside my other cardstock. I'm going to bring in my Score Buddy again, and I'm going to do my score line again at 4 1/4. That's right where the little asterisk is. Go ahead and create my score line. I like to do 1 or 2 score lines, and maybe more if I'm using a heavier cardstock. I'm going to create our crease, and now we have a 4 1/4 inch square card. This is really nice because it will fit inside your standard A2 size envelope, which is the size that would fit your 4 1/4 by 8.5 or 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card. So it's just a smaller version and square version of our portrait style card that folds at the top. So another great size card I like to use is a 5 inch square card. You can also do 5.5, as much as you can do when you're using an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock. So I'm going to take this cardstock and cut it down to 10 inches. And then I'm also going to cut it down again at 5 inches. Hold on to these pieces of scrap pieces because they are great for when you're stamping out sentiments or die cutting and doing that kind of thing. So we have a 5 inch by 10 inch piece. I'm just gonna close up my paper trimmer here and grab my scoring board and do my score line at 5 inches. Go ahead and set my cardstock in here and create my fold and do my crease. And now I have a 5 inch and a 4 1/4 inch card base. 5 inch, 5.5 inch card bases, you're definitely going to need to buy envelopes or make envelopes for these. They are an odd size and sometimes might require extra postage. So just keep that in mind when you're making that size if you're mailing them. So I want to show you a couple of other fun card folding styles that are very easy to do and very popular, and also can be fun to even change up a little bit. So I have my 2 pieces of cardstock. This is the half of my 8.5 by 11 cut at the 4 1/4, and then this is the half of the 8.5 by 11 cut at 5.5. I'm going to use my 5.5, and we're going to create something called a Z-fold card. I'm going to take this card base and I'm going to score it at 4 1/4. But then I'm going to create another score line. We have our 4 1/4 inch score right where the asterisk is. On the score buddy, it also has another little dot right here for your 2 1/8 inch. I'm going to create a score line right there. And then all we have to do is fold our card on our 4 1/4 inch side, and then score back or fold back our 2 1/8 inch. We created a really fun card base that's called the Z-fold card. So we have these little panels here, we have a little panel here, and then we have our back of our card. And you could do really fun things with this. We're going to take our 4 1/4 by 11 inch and we're going to score this at the 5.5 inch mark. That creates our first score line. And then we're going to go to 2 3/4. We're going to create our score line, another score line at 2 3/4. So basically what we did was we took 5.5, which is half of our 11, and then half of the 5.5 right here is 2 3/4. So I created that score line as well. So now we've taken our portrait style card, added the extra line right here, and then we made a Z style card with this style of card. And you can create again so it goes like this, or you can create it so it comes out from the side. So this is the 2 versions. We have our standard size cards. We've taken our basic card, added an extra score line, and created that Z fold. Same thing with our portrait style card where the card opens from the top. We added that extra score line and made it so it opens like this. Again, you can add a nice little panel here, do a sentiment on the inside. You can do so many different things, add some pattern paper, lots of different things that you can do with these kind of card bases. So another fun thing you can do with your Z-fold card is actually create one little additional element to it and make it a totally different style card. Still a Z-fold card, but just something a little bit different. I'm going to open up my cardstock, take it to my paper trimmer. I'm going to line my paper up on my score line at the half point. So this is my standard size card where it's scored at 5 or 4 1/4. So I'm going to line my trimmer up at the 4 1/4, and then I'm going to turn it, and we're going to create just at an angle, and you could do this as steep as you want or as little as you want. So you can have bigger gap at here, or you can have a bigger gap up here, however you want it. Just make sure that you're right at the score line up here. So we're just going to go ahead and trim that off, and taking off just that little piece right here, created that little diagonal cut, has made your card completely different. So now we have this little layered look where we have our flap here, we have a larger flap in the back, and we have this really cool looking Z-fold style card. Same thing, you could do the same thing with your portrait style that is made into the Z-fold. We just make sure that you're cutting it at the score line first. So we're going to cut up in the score line and then do it at the diagonal. And you can, again, however steep you want that, you can. So we created a totally different style card base just by cutting off a portion of that card. Another style of card that you can make is a gatefold card. We're going to take another piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and we're going to go ahead and cut this at 5.5. We're going to bring in our scoring board, and our bone folder. And this time we're going to set our cardstock, and instead of creating our 1/4 inch score to score down the middle, we're going to do 2 score lines to create our gatefold. So again, this score buddy has a little mark for an additional, it's like a little dot right there for a 2 1/8 inch. I'm going to create a score line at the 2 1/8 inch mark. I'm going to take my cardstock and turn it around and do a 2 1/8 inch score line here as well. And then we can go ahead and fold our cardstock on our score lines, and we've created a really cute gatefold card. And we can also cut at the diagonal, so we can add our score lines. What I suggest doing is probably deciding beforehand where you're going to cut at to mark it so you can see where you're going to be cutting at. So let me just find my pen that's buried underneath all these pieces of paper here. And you can decide how far down you're gonna go. I'm just gonna mark it where I want it to go. We're gonna take our cardstock. I'm gonna start at my pen mark here and then go to my score line here. Doing the same thing over here. We're gonna go on our score line and then to our pen mark. And now we've created a different style of card base. I'm gonna create one more card base. I'm taking the other half of my 8.5 by 11. And again, this is a gatefold card, so we're gonna score at 2 1/4. Turn it around and score at 2 1/4. We're going to go ahead and fold in on our score lines. And now what we're going to do is, just like we did with our card that we created the little diagonal cut on the top, we are going to go ahead and mark on our cardstock where we want. I would suggest using pencil. I'm just doing pen just so it shows up better on camera. I'm going to take my cardstock, and from my score line, I'm just going to line it up on the 4 inch mark here. That would be this one. I'm going to go with that one. So I'm lining the score line here to the mark that we made. I'm going to add another score line. I'm going to do the same thing over here on the other side. My score line and my pen mark. The hard part is seeing where your lines are. And now that we have that done, we're going to go ahead and fold these in, and then you can also fold these back. So you're creating yet another style of card with your gatefold card. There are so many different ways to create different styles of cards. You can even play around with your 4 1/4 inch by 11 inch, which is the portrait style card, and cut this as well, or do different styles of folds with this. There's so many different techniques for card making and card folding. These are just the basics, some simple ones and ones that are used quite a bit, but added things to it, like adding the little score line to create the flap, cutting your cards at an angle to create that different style of card. And they're just really simple and fun and great ways to add some nice little details and effects to your card. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'm going to create some templates for these cards, and I'm going to have them over on my blog if you want to grab them. Or if you're somebody that's already been a long-time card maker and you've been watching my videos and enjoying them, they'll be there too, because sometimes it's fun to see those styles again and play with them again. So thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to give today's video a thumbs up. That's how YouTube knows that you enjoyed my video. And if you stuck around here to the very end, here are some extra videos that you might enjoy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!